Welcome to the Channel Chat podcast. Hello, I'm Marc Sumner, host of the Channel Chat podcast show, and today I have Paul Tomlinson. I was going to say the current MD, but the ex-MD of Mirus IT in the virtual house. How are we doing, Paul?
I'm very good, thank you.
Good. That must be quite weird, actually, being, as I said, the ex-MD, because it was part of your life for so long. So for the listeners that don't know you, Paul, could you just give us a bit of an introduction to your background and why you actually set up Mirus in the first place?
Yeah, so I'm 43. I was thinking then, how old am I? I left school at 16, took a job as a sort of apprentice in IT. I had my first business at 18. By 21, that had gone bankrupt, and I've gone personally bankrupt. So then I moved to Ireland to spend a few years working for someone else. And then I moved back to the UK and decided to create Mirus, and kind of that's where it went from there. So Mirus is a IT support business based in Milton Keynes. I think there's about 115 people now in the business, and they're now owned by Content+Cloud. So that's who we sold the business to. Right. Okay. And you were well known in the industry Mirus is well known in the industry for offering sort of exceptional customer services. So what would you say that set Mirus at the time about maybe that other, set you apart from other transactional bars? I think we were very early adopters of the MSP model before it kind of had the acronym there, before there was the structure built around it. So we recognized that trying to have a fixed cost would be what customers would want, and it would also enable us to do the best job for a customer. So we weren't restricted by saying we'd have to charge you X for this or whatever it might be. We just established what we wanted to do for the customer and do the best job we possibly could, which would lead to the best outcome for the customer, and then they'd be happy. But really, I think the thing that stood us apart was the team we had around us. From the early days, whilst we didn't manage to retain a huge amount of people right the way through the journey. The people that we did have were incredibly talented, and it was really those people and the processes within the business that differentiated us the most and gave us that high quality of service. Yeah, because I was thinking, I've never really been approached by many of the Mirus team or your staff. So none of them seem to have come to me for looking for a role. So I don't know if that's us or you, but you must be sort of quite well known for sort of creating a good working environment and maybe pretty good staff retention. So how did you sort of go about achieving that? I think we went through different journeys, and I was talking to someone only about this the other day, actually. When we were a small business, sub 20 employees, it was very much a drinking culture, and it reminded me of a rugby club. I used to enjoy playing rugby. I used to enjoy my rugby tours, and that's the sort of mentality. Albeit we were very professional in what we were doing, we had a lot of fun. As we grew the business, the approach that we had around things just wouldn't work. It wasn't grown up enough, really. And we would probably have ended up in hot water with a HR department or an employment tribunal if we had carried on the way we were going. So we had to grow up a little bit. But we grew up and we still had lots of fun. So we still did a lot of activities together. The National Three Peaks we did 5 times. We did coast-to-coast bike rides. But they were more focused on team building events that were inclusive for everyone. So we might do a big cycling event, we might do a big walk, but we also might go and have a day out helping the local community by, removing weeds from a river or something like that. So it was very much about building a strong team ethic there. And then we did things like we put in place an EMI scheme for the team. So we recognised that the team we had was the key to being able to grow that business, and retaining that talent in the business was also key. And hopefully that's why they weren't calling you. Exactly. Although we did face, I think the negative around having a successful business that people recognise as performing really well is they want to go and pinch your staff to bring them into their business and help them. So a lot of the staff that we did lose, we lost to competitors locally. But no, we managed to keep a lot of the team there, the core team, and they were really effective in what they did. How did you mentioned there about sort of the drinking culture, and I've had that in my own company. We're under 20 staff, and we've had to sort of transition recently to sort of thinking the activities that we're doing can't be just around drinking. It can't be just going down the pub on a Friday and all that sort of stuff. So we're trying to incorporate
more diverse and more widely accepted, if you like, activities. What made you make that transition? Because you said it was more like a rugby club to start with, but was it just because you wanted more of a diverse workforce, or did you think it was a barrier to scale?
It was the diversity in the team. So we felt like the culture. It was mainly lads, and we had, as I said, we had a lot of fun. It was like a rugby club. But as we brought females into the workplace, people with different ethnic backgrounds, a drinking culture wasn't necessarily the way to go forward. I think it also coincided with my own, I had some children, my children were growing up, my time that I had available, I couldn't sit at home with a horrible hangover all day. So I think we had to naturally change things just to suit both sides of it, really. And yeah, it's, it was a positive thing. And I think actually a lot more people remember the great events that we put on, like these sort of charity events and things like that, then, well, most people didn't remember the night out, if I'm honest. But when we did have them, they were still lots of fun. So
yeah, absolutely. Now, am I right in thinking your background's a bit more technical focused as opposed to sales development? So how did that impact your growth? And what I mean by that is, did you have to sort of hire sort of sales skills in, or did you sort of do that yourself still?
I mean, it was a real barrier in the early days. So my background is, it's Microsoft engineer, Cisco, did my certified ethical hacking, my CISSP. So I really enjoy that side of things. And the business, when I first created it, was very much around a contracting business for me to be able to invoice for my time. We did a pretty good job, so that meant people kept asking for us to come back, and then we just needed to try and grow it. So I think in the early days, we were lucky in that we were growing through referral, through relationships we had, but then we recognized there was a point that wasn't going to work. So we had to bring in some external salespeople. And we had some real challenges around that. And I think that's because my mentality isn't wired in the same way as a purely sales-driven, leader might think. So we made a few mistakes along the way, made a few bad hires, but eventually we got Dan Sharp, who's now taking over managing the business. And he grew from being a sales manager through to being the sales director in the organization. And actually with some help from some external consultants, we really managed to move things along. So I'm pretty proud of the sales team, the structure, the processes that we built, and they were a really effective team when I left the business, and still are.
Great. Now, some of the listeners are business owners themselves. What advice would you give them about planning and executing a successful exit?
Well, we tried to do it 3 times, so we learned from our mistakes along the way. One was an emotionally driven decision. My mother had passed away, and I'd kind of had a bit of a life assessment, and decided that the way that business was consuming my life was too much of a drain, and I wanted to free up some time. So we started down a process, and I wasn't really happy with the number, and I wasn't really happy that I was making the right decision. So we stopped that process, and then we went back to kind of running the business as normal. Then we decided that we felt we'd struggle to scale the business. So we felt external investment might be the way to go. I didn't feel like I could work with a PE firm. I felt like, as an owner manager, I wanted to be able to make all my own decisions. So we started that process, and we weren't sure whether we'd end up with a trade sale or we'd end up, looking at an external investor. We went down through that process, and we realized there were a lot of things that we hadn't done right. So as we were going through the process, we identified contracts that hadn't been signed. We identified problems within the business that would impact the value of the business. So we decided to abort that process. And actually, through those 2 attempts at selling the business, we looked at the things that we'd gotten wrong, and we made then a plan within the business to actually say, these are the things we need to make sure are right before we go back to market. That then meant that when we went through the sale process the 3rd and last time, it was a very quick process. And actually, talking to Pete over at Content+Cloud, he said it was an incredibly easy process from their side. They've made a number of acquisitions, and actually the decision making for them, and then the process in terms of availability of information, that type of thing, was really, really easy. So it meant we didn't get chipped along the way, which was something I didn't want to happen, which was something I was a little bit worried about. So, but yeah, it was 3 attempts at doing it, and the last one, I was happy with where we got to in terms of number. I felt the team moved to the right place and they've got a good home and they can scale that business. And I feel like our customers got looked after. So I think everyone won out of that.
Yeah, win-win-win.
Yeah, which is absolutely what I'd always wanted to do. I didn't want to sell the business and have our customers suffer or our team suffer. I didn't want to lose the brand. So it was a brand I was proud of, and they've retained the brand in the Content+Cloud group, which is really nice to see. So I still live quite near to the office, so I see the vehicles driving around, and Mirus provide our phones and our copiers actually at the gym. So
you've still got a connection there. Brilliant. So a lot of owners of MSPs struggle to get past sort of £1 or £2 million. A lot of owner managed business. I'm an owner managed business myself, and it's challenging scaling if you like the control of it. How do you think you scaled the business past that? You mentioned already that the two buyouts or the 2 attempted buyouts helped you sort of reassess it, but how did you actually start scaling in the early days?
So we didn't need to create a business plan because we didn't need any external investment when we first started. I mean, we were a contracting company and that was it. And if I'm honest, we probably didn't really have a clear business plan until about 5 years in. 5 years in, we decided that we needed to try and put some structure around what was happening. I don't think we ever would have imagined being the size we were at that stage. From the outset, actually, when we first created the company, I thought we might end up as 2 or 3 people. So when you reflect back on that, what we sold at, it's definitely wasn't what I ever thought we'd do. But when we started going through the business planning process, we tried a few different mechanisms. We tried working with some external parties, and then actually I read a book. It's called Traction. Here's one I've got from here, which I was reading only earlier, and I really like the way the framework they talk about in the book works, and it really resonated with me. So we started to look at building it, incorporating some elements from that book into how we did our business planning, and that meant we were able to make decisions that we could see where we were going. I think the worst mistake we made, we signed a lease or a renewal on the lease, and then within 6 months we outgrew the premises, so it was a complete waste of time. But we knew we were going to outgrow the premises, so I don't know why we re-signed it. But we ended up having to pay for that premises for a further 3 years whilst we were in a different place as well. So I think it ended up being a kickboxing studio for a friend of mine. Studio for 3 years. But yeah, there's lots of things we hadn't thought about, and actually sitting down and putting some time into planning, and building out clear milestones and saying this is what we're going to achieve in the next 90 days, rather than getting to the end of the year and realizing we hadn't done what we set out to do. And that meant we started to focus on lead generation, recruitment, premises, everything, thinking about where we were going to, rather than kind of looking at things when we were in a certain place, looking at things, we haven't got enough leads or we haven't not hitting a number. It's kind of like, how are we going to achieve that number? So that forward thinking approach really made a massive difference to us. Yeah.
So you obviously, how long did you actually work there in the end? It was 17 years you ran the business for?
Yeah, so 18 years.
18 years. So
I had
after that period of time, what led you to make, obviously I know you'd had 2 or 3 attempts already, but what led you to actually exit, and why you did it?
I didn't feel that I was the right person to take the business forward, if I'm honest.
Right.
As I said, I never imagined the business growing to the size it grew to. And I think, there are owner managers in businesses that the business outgrows them. And as much as I worked really hard to try and develop my own skills, I also didn't really enjoy elements of what my role had become. The bit I enjoyed most about my role was going and seeing customers and helping them. So I even started to put myself into a role of a sort of virtual IT director to help some of our customers, because I really enjoyed that. But being then the owner manager and also trying to go out and consult with customers, just the two things just didn't work properly together. But I knew I really enjoyed that bit. So I felt that, whether I pursued an MBA with Cranfield, which was one of my options, or whether I hired an MD and I took a sort of side step and just, stayed as a shareholder, none of those things were really going to work for me because, the business had almost grown beyond me. And I certainly didn't think I'd be capable of running a 150 person business or a 250 person business. So I think there's an element of doubt there. I think also, I've got 3 young children. I want to spend more time with them. So I kind of felt like if we were going to do another push, that next push was going to require more time investment, less time at home. And I think, I felt we'd achieved enough in terms of what we'd done. I felt proud of what we'd done. I thought we were going to get enough for the business to be able to make that decision to say, let's sell it and, not never work again, but be able to choose what I wanted to do. So that's where we kind of came to. And I spoke to the other shareholders in the business, not the staff who were on the EMI scheme, but my sort of co-directors. And we all agreed that, if I wasn't in it to grow and push on to that next stage, then it wouldn't really be the best thing for the business. So we were quite open about it as a management team between us, and we all agreed it was the right thing to do. And Pete over at IT Lab at the time, we had a call, and I think he popped up to see me, and within about 4 hours we'd pretty much agreed what we were going to do. I felt it was the right fit, he felt it was the right fit, and we'd both known each other through the industry whilst we'd never met. I had a load of respect for what he'd done over at IT Lab as it was at the time. I think he had some respect for me and think he still does. So yeah, I think it made it quite easy for the decision to be made, really.
Okay, good. What did you, obviously 18 years, long time in the industry, what did you most enjoy about working in the tech industry?
I think the community, that was one of the things that it took me a few years to realise that being a businessman on my own and just trying to focus on my own business wasn't going to get the best result for it, and actually working more closely with some of the vendors, so ConnectWise and people like that, and actually building relationships with the vendors and then other MSPs, it made a huge difference to us as a business. But also I enjoyed that social aspect of it, and particularly with smaller MSPs, it does tend to be technical people with similar challenges. And kind of going to conferences, meeting those guys, having a good time at the conference, but also getting some nuggets to take away and implement in the business. That was great. I think seeing the journey with the business and being as proud as I was about what we'd created, that was a huge thing for me as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's move on, Paul. So what influenced you to sort of leave IT and start a gym?
So I'm sitting here in a hoodie with our gym branding on. Well, we probably did it the worst time ever, obviously, with the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely.
But my wife's background, she was an accountant, didn't enjoy doing it, so she became a personal trainer. She's competed as a female bodybuilder and also as a powerlifter. Incredibly successful in both things. So she's got a passion for fitness, and gyms are a recurring revenue model. So very similar to an MSP. So from a business perspective, I kind of thought, well, I've run a recurring revenue business and done reasonably well at it. I enjoy going to the gym. Let's try and do this. So we've put 1.4 million quid into this gym. Originally, it was just meant to be a small little gym, and we got a bit carried away with ourselves. We opened in July, and then obviously we closed, and then we opened and we closed, and various different things. We're currently open, so that's the good bit. But no, I'm really enjoying the journey. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. It's a very different role to what I did before. Originally, we said this was going to be more of a lifestyle business for ourselves, so we were just going to have one gym, enjoy it. It's on our doorstep. Be able to train in it ourselves. The kids, get them involved as they get a bit older, that type of thing.
Yeah.
But I've kind of got a bit of a bug for it, and I enjoyed the build phase, the pre-sale, the kind of getting it going so much that we've decided we're going to try and push on and get a few more. Wow. So we're going to get through the winter just in case there's another lockdown. But the plan is then next year to open 2 other facilities and just try and grow that and then see where we go from there. So, as a business, we're covering our costs as it stands. We've been open for 4.5 months. We haven't repaid the loan to me yet, but that's hopefully. But yeah, to be able to get to the point we've gotten to with all of the different issues around Corona and things like that, again, that's been a great result. But a lot of that has been down to the team that we've got around us again. The the team are perfect for what we do. You know, they are friendly, engaging, professional, and that differentiates us to our local competition. So I think, you know, what I learned from Mirus was very much around people and process are the keys to successful business. Implementing those things in what we've done here has made a huge difference, you know, over in this business as well. So I don't think I'll ever scale it to quite how big we got Mirus. I don't fancy that. That's a challenge beyond where I'm going for at the moment, but it'd be nice to get, you know, maybe 5 or 6 sites in total, and you know, that'll be a £5-6 million business.
Yeah,
you know,
fantastic.
Generating decent profits.
So is there no chance you could be tempted back into the IT world if an opportunity come up?
I got a WhatsApp message yesterday actually asking me if I'd go back and do something. So I think it's difficult. It's never say never. You know, this is, you know, I'm not involved in day-to-day management at the gym. It's not something that I want to be involved in. You know, I want to be able to have that freedom to do things that I want to do. But I think, you know, if there was an opportunity that somebody came to me with and it was exciting and I thought, you know, I might fancy it, then yeah, it's something I'd look at. But right now, I think I'll just focus on, you know, putting weights back on weight trees and talking to members about memberships, you know, for another few months at least.
Paul, my last question. Obviously, the pandemic has affected not just IT companies. Obviously, your gym has been closed as well, and it's affected a lot of people. So my last question for you, and I know you're not Mystic Meg or anything, but what's your prediction for the IT channel over the next sort of 6 months? Where do you see it going, and what sort of trends do you see happening?
So, I mean, whilst I'm not in the channel anymore, obviously, you know, have a great relationship with loads of people who still are, and talking to all of the MSPs I used to work alongside and talking to the guys at Mirus, everyone's flying. You know, everyone is looking at their pipeline and just saying, you know, we have so much desire to start moving forward. So many people have had the brakes put on their business and not been able to kind of push on or not felt confident in pushing on. So, you know, looking at the amount of projects that these other businesses have got kind of ready to go, I think it's going to be awesome. You know, okay, there's going to be some businesses that can't afford to invest in infrastructure. There's going to be some businesses that unfortunately fail, but equally the other customers who've been sitting on this spend and want to try and move their business forward or have exciting plans that they've been able to shape during lockdown, I think they just want to get going. So I think the next year, 2 years is probably going to be some of the busiest period that we've ever seen in the industry. You know, and I think remote working as a piece, you know, it's been great. A lot of people have been able to do it successfully. I think there's now a fear around security and, you know, how do we make sure remote working works well but protect our data? So I think that's going to create a lot of opportunities for businesses. I think it's probably one of the best sort of pushes to move businesses forward that we'll ever see in our lifetime, I think. So I think it'll be pretty good.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's the next 18 months is going to be pretty good for the IT channel. So I echo those thoughts. Paul, you've been a fantastic guest. Thanks so much for your time.
Okay, thank you.